start small with something and eventually you grow and learn more, and then you get to do something wonderful and contribute something wonderful.
Welcome to Reproducibility, an open science podcast featuring early career researchers. I'm Helena, a postdoctoral researcher at the German Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases, coming to you from Magdeburg, Germany.
And I'm William, a new lecturer at the University of Adelaide in Australia. So first, I'd like to pay my respects to the Kaurna people for their custodianship, both past and present, of the land that I'm currently residing and working on. Today, we have a very exciting episode. We are joined by Lamis Elkheir and Emmanuel Boakye, who are both from the African Reproducibility Network, or AREN. Lamis, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, Helena and William, for this very nice opportunity. So I'm Lamis Elkheir. I'm a pharmacist. I'm a lecturer at the University of Khartoum in Sudan. I'm also a researcher on neglected tropical diseases at the Mycetoma Research Center. And yeah, I've joined AREN around a bit after it was started by Emmanuel. And yeah, everything ever since the journey have been amazing. And I'm currently the co-director of AREN with Emmanuel and also the training lead. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Very cool. Emmanuel, would you like to give an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, William and Helena. My name is Emmanuel Boakye, and I'm the founder and director of AREN. I have a background in biochemistry. I completed my undergrad in 2021 from Khartoum University of Science and Technology. And I think my journey in open science has started even before I can even call myself a well-established researcher. So right after undergrad, I just dived straight into open science, and I think I've been working on AREN since then. And I'm so happy to be here to talk about what we are trying to do in Africa. Thank you very much.
Right, fantastic. Well, as you've already heard, this episode, we're going to talk about the African Reproducibility Network, or short AREN, how they got started, how they work with researchers in Africa, and how they really push the boundaries of the global reproducibility movement. It would be great if you could both give a little bit more of a background of what AREN is and how it got started.
So yeah, how did AREN get founded? You talked about your journey starting from undergrad, which is exciting because I think reproducibility is about reaching early career researchers and about joining the open science movement. So I'm curious, Emmanuel, like what got you started, and how did you end up founding AREN?
Yeah, so I think I got to know about open science through a course I did online. It was a research writing course for science and for the sciences, and they talked about open access, and then they mentioned open science briefly. So I mean, curiosity about change. So I decided to follow it up and learn more about it. So I got to know about a lot of initiatives that were going on, and I got to know about eLife. So I think when the eLife launched the ambassador program for that year, I applied. But as usual, I was thinking that that program was going to be for like people with PhDs, right? Because they said early career researchers. And at the time, I think I had just completed my undergrad. So I felt I wouldn't get in, but then I was able to get in. I was quite excited. I was one of two from Ghana. And I think at the end of the training program, the eLife Ambassador training program has an advocacy phase, right? Where you have to come up with a project. And I was thinking about what I can do to really cause change, right? On a very, very large scale. So that's where the idea of AREN came in. So I pitched it in 2022, August 2022, but it was there for a while, simmering, and I was trying to look around, trying to work on other stuff. Then I think I go back to it in 2023, the middle of 2023, where I started to work on it again, and then things began to grow quite wonderfully. So that is how it got started. And I think the interest also came from the fact that personally, when I was in undergrad, I think the experience that I had during my undergrad research, I really suffered because I was given a topic that I wasn't so familiar with. So getting papers to get the right information and etc. was very tough. So that was what got me really interested in the open science movement and the fact that, I mean, this is a problem that we are all suffering from. So I think that is what kind of motivated me to get started. And I think around the same time, I think around 2022, when I was in the E-Life ambassador, I think I had a wonderful opportunity that I didn't think I would be able to get involved in. I think AAU, the Association of African Universities, was preparing for their weekly program called the African Universities Day, right? And it's a huge organization, and then fortunately that year it was themed Open Science, bringing equity to research and publishing. And I was invited to be part of the panelists, and it was crazy because I mean, I was new to open science and I had not done anything major, but it was a wonderful experience. So that also gave me that confidence that I can really push and then do something like really impactful. So that was a major motivation to E-Life was a major motivation. That event was a major motivation. And then I'm also a COS ambassador. And I think when I joined, they were trying to do translations for the open research, open science framework. They were trying to do translations, and then the community manager then, I think Daniel, who was working in that capacity, pitched it to me if I'll be interested in helping. I was like, yeah. So we had a meeting and we were talking about the language, and we're like Swahili. And then as I was talking about Swahili, I don't know how to speak Swahili. I've never been to a Swahili speaking country, but I said I want to help them translate the material. It was crazy, right? So I just used the connections I had to bring a team together of people coming from these Swahili speaking countries, and then they were able to translate the material so quickly. So right now, OSF has a translated page there for Swahili. So those events kind of really gave me that confidence that I can really do something impactful, right? So that made me think I should do something. So AREN was there simmering, but I had those experiences in 2022, getting to that, and then 2020, I was like, let me do this. So it was wonderful when I started, and I think it's been wonderful so far. Yeah.
Wow, it's very impressive that you got that started while still an undergrad. Yeah. How about you, Lamis? How did you get involved?
So my experience in open science also started during my undergrad studies, where I was preparing some lecture notes. I really love to merge everything that we get in the lecture and in the textbooks, and I sort of make them and summarize them into lecture notes. And then I make these notes available for everyone, and this was something not very common in my community, because everyone was so secretive, and it's my effort, so I should keep it to myself. Why would I let others benefit from it? But then my mentality back then was like, I already have these, so why not just share it around and help, maybe those who have some difficulties following up. And then, similar to Emmanuel, my official start in open science began with eLife, the eLife community ambassadors. I remember that I saw the ad and I applied while we had a coup in Sudan. I'm from Sudan. So there were no internet connections. I remember that I had to travel like for half an hour to find a place with an internet connection, but there was this, I don't know, deep calling for me to go and apply for this program, which I didn't really know much about. And luckily, I was selected, and ever since, I became hooked, And I also realized how important this is, because I'm a researcher from a developing country, and a country that has undergone a lot of sanctions. So researchers in Sudan are suffering, were suffering and are suffering to get like the basic materials, like just to get a Falcon tube. You have to search a lot, because like companies cannot really ship them to Sudan, so they have to come like from a back door. Yeah, so I knew that open science is something that I have to promote, and I also have to make the voice of researchers coming from communities like mine heard for the public, and because the public don't know the struggles that we go through. So yeah, ever since, this became my life mission.
Wow. That sounds very inspiring and amazing that you managed to do all of that with that kind of difficulty to get internet access and everything. So yeah, it would be really interesting to hear a little bit more about AREN's structure, to also sort of on board Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Helena. So currently, AREN operates with two different groups, right? We have the community and then the team. So the team is basically now Lamis and I. When we started, we were trying to get a larger group in place. So we shared it across the eLife network and some of the connections we had that were related to open science to try to form a larger team. But I think that didn't work out as we wanted it to initially. So the team became much smaller. And so right now it's just Lamis and I trying to do everything. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes, but we are so passionate that we are surviving, right? So yeah, so that's right now, Lamis and I. And then we have our community. So our community is structured in such a way that there is a sign-up form. If you want to join our community, just go to our website. The Get Involved page, there's a link for you to sign up. Unfortunately, it's mainly for Africans. That is how we've structured it, right? But we have the Slack channel there that you can join. So the community members right now that we have this Slack space that everyone is there, they can join. I mean, if you are interested in being on the Slack, you can be part. That's how our community is structured right now. But currently, we are also moving on to a different structure, the local network leads. That is related to the training program we are doing this year. I think Lamis will talk more about it. So that would also be another level of structure because they will be more officially engaged in AREN because they will be representing AREN officially at the institutions or within their communities. So that will be another level of structure. Yeah, so we are evolving, and I'm sure that maybe next year or next 2 years, our structure will be much more evolved than it is now. But now it's a very simple structure, and it's been quite an effective structure for us. Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure there's still a lot of opportunity for growth
Yeah.
in the next coming years, as it sounds
Yeah.
like. Yeah. So you've already mentioned a couple of sort of hurdles potentially when it comes to communicating with others about what you're starting to do. So, for example, Emmanuel, as you mentioned, some language potential barriers, or also, as Lamis said, kind of the mindset potentially of sharing your work. So how do you go about communicating with different research institutions or other researchers to really get them on board with reproducibility as a general kind of movement?
Yeah, thank you so much, Helena. So I think when we started AREN, what we realized was that um, there was a much bigger problem, right? And the problem was that the general concept of open science, people were not aware of that. So we decided that we are going to go with the general concept of open science, a much broader scope, so that we can bring people in to kind of connect the dots, and then you can focus on the other areas that you want. So that's what we started. So we decided to go with a much broader focus. And then that really got people in because they saw things that they are familiar with, like let's say open data or open access. These are familiar stuff. So then it gets people in. So when you get people in, and then you blend the training and it kind of gives them that complete set of knowledge. So I think that's how we've been trying to get to the researchers across Africa, that we are trying to offer this broad knowledge for them. The institutions, we are yet to really directly engage the institutions because that's another level of engagement, but we are working on that. And we also wanted to do it organically through people that are there at the institutions because we believe that, I mean, I am in Ghana right now. I may not know the situation in Nigeria or Uganda. I mean, how the research system works. So it would be good to have someone from Uganda that is part of our community that has maybe gone through our training, some of our training programs, who is communicating with the institution through for us, like someone we can reach the institution. So that is the approach that we use, then that is where we are getting to right now. So we started a local network lead training program, and I believe Lamis will talk more about the local network lead program, and that is what will help us to kind of establish that link through the researchers and then get to the institution. So yeah, that is how I've been going about so far.
Cool. Yeah, it's clearly you put a lot of thought into how you want to grow your reproducibility network. I want to know, yeah, who are you looking for? Like what kind of characteristics, qualities, who do you want to, join the movement? What are you looking for?
I think, to be honest, we kind of looked at the landscape of open science in Africa, and what we found is that it's mainly trying to engage stakeholders, the talking to those who are at the top, because like the initiatives currently going, they're trying to directly go to policies. But what we were thinking is that maybe it's better to engage those at the grassroots, you know, the researchers, those who are working in the lab, in the field, because these people are the future stakeholders. So we thought that it would be easier, you know, to introduce open science to those at the grassroots, because they are the people who are currently suffering. They are the people who are currently trying to access the paper that is behind the paywall. And I think we were successful in that, because when we launched our local network local network lead training program, we opened the registration for those like grassroots researchers who are established or already working within African institutions. So we thought that this would be the gateway. You know, if we could train one person from one university, then and it's already showing, you know, even though that the training program is not yet finished. I will talk in more details about it, but we already see like people who are already engaging their administration, and their administration being excited to to chip in and learn more. Yeah, so these are the people we're looking for. And to talk in more details about the training program, we designed it to be for a period of 6 to 7 months. And we divided it into 3 levels. You know, level 1 was mainly about, you know, introducing the concepts. As Emmanuel said, we noticed that these grassroots researchers, if you tell them what is a preprint, they had no idea. They might know about open access and open data, but all the other amazing things that are included in open science, they have no clue about. So we decided to make the first 2 months just an introductory level. You know, what is open data? What are preprints? You know, for them just to start to understand these things. Then they move on to level 2, and this is more of a practical level where we teach them how to implement open science in their work, you know, how to make their data open, how to post a preprint. And then this is the level that is currently going on, and it has just finished. And next week we're starting level 3, and this is a level mainly about aimed at training them at becoming effective leaders. We will teach them about leadership skills, about mentoring, about community management. You know, so the last level is not open science per se, but it's skills that that they should have in order for them to be effective leaders, because we want them to succeed. And one other thing is that, to be honest, we sort of kind of intentionally made the training program intense. And this was, we wanted it to act as, you know, as a filter. Because if you're not committed and if you're not passionate, you will not go through. And we've seen that. We started with 70 people at level 1, and they boiled down to about 38 in level 2, and I think now in level 3 they are 30. But now we are sure, you know, that those 30 people, they are fully committed. They will not they will fight for open science with all what they got. Yeah, so I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing, actually. It's a really good retention rate for, you know, like a quite
Yeah.
a involved program. And I
Yes.
guess it's a nice way of also potentially recruiting some more people, maybe to your organization team, right? Is that?
Exactly. That's exactly, because as Emmanuel said, the original way we went about it didn't work, where we just invite people to come and they sort of like disappear. But now we know, like, we've been working with these people for 6 months, so we know them very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you can kind of, you know, those are some really good lessons learned for any potentially new grassroots initiative that might want to do something similar. So out of curiosity, how diverse is that group in terms of different countries? And also, are these sorts of basic materials available to others on the website? How do you go about that? Potentially sharing like the first level or something?
Yeah, thank you very much, Helena. Yeah, so they're quite diverse, right? Our trainees were coming from about 20 countries, if I remember that right, and over 60 institutions. That was quite a very, very good diversity for us. We were so happy about that. And I think mostly after the sessions, we share the slides and then the video, we upload it to YouTube so that they can watch it and catch up at any time. And then we also share the slides via Google Drive. That's what we use so that they can easily download. So all the materials that are there. And we also have this Excel sheet with all the links to all the resources, the Google Drive links, the YouTube links, so that they don't have to really go through all the documents and folders and anything like that. They can just go to one document and then they can just get an access to all the resources. So we have that for level 1 and level 2 now. So anyone who wants to catch up on any session or get any resource can just go ahead straight to that. So I mean, they've been quite resourced to ensure that they are well equipped for the work ahead. Yeah.
Amazing. So potentially even some of our listeners might be able to go and look at those YouTube videos.
Currently, they are not public. Unfortunately, currently they are not public. They are restricted to our community. But we plan that after the training program, we just open it up for the community to kind of enjoy. So yeah,
Perfect.
definitely.
That sounds excellent. Nice.
Yeah, I'm curious about your cohort so far. What's the energy like? Like what's the vibe? You've also sort of mentioned you filtered out the passionate people. I guess I want to hear like about the visions they have for the open science movement for them. Like what have they noticed? What change are they trying to inspire or do they want to see? Like I would love to hear a little bit more about those anecdotes or stories if you've got them.
Yeah. To be honest, our trainees are amazing. We have to appreciate that all of them, or most of them, are coming from countries that are developing, countries that are suffering in so many ways. Even just electricity and internet is sometimes an issue. But to be honest, we're so proud of them because they do their best to attend, and while they attend, they are so proactive and interactive, and we've even launched a survey for our trainers, and we were surprised that most of them were so happy with the trainees and how the discussion goes in the sessions. And one other particular thing that I'm so proud of is that um, they have the critical thinking of, we try to say that, but they've also come to the conclusion that maybe not all the open science aspects are applicable to my community, and this is very important because, to be honest, Africa is still kind of a black box about what works and what doesn't work regarding open science. And we were so happy that they had the courage, even like to challenge the trainers and say, oh, I don't think that this would work. And we were so impressed by that, because it takes really, sometimes, like some trainees are so passive, they just absorb what they're giving and they don't try to challenge it. But yeah, they challenge a lot of things, and they bring up topics that um, are important, like colonialism, for example. This is something that has been brought up. So some of them suggested that maybe this open science movement is a new form of colonialism. And we had a wonderful discussion about that. And then we came to the conclusion, or maybe, open science practices like peer registration wouldn't really work in Africa, because as an African researcher, I don't have the resources that labs in the global north have. So maybe if I pre-register my idea and put it out there, it will be scooped. And this is a real concern for us in Africa. Yeah, so we are learning from them, and our trainers are learning from them on Like, for example, one of our trainers, we were talking about preprint myths, and we had Johnny Coates, and I think you had him in the podcast. And yeah, he was talking about, oh, maybe posting a preprint would lead to scooping. This is a myth. But then we came to the realization that no, in Africa, it's not a myth. It's a fact. If you want to build on your work, then putting it up maybe as a preprint, it could easily get scooped. Yeah, so we are learning a lot, to be honest, and we're excited to still learn more from them.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey of learning, right?
Yeah,
The open science
exactly.
movement is also evolving, and
Yeah.
things are changing,
Yeah.
practices will change, and yes.
Yeah, and again, it's important because it's mainly been, the movement have been dominated by the global north. So it's very important for us to cater open science to the needs of the global south, and for us, for AREN, for Africa in particular. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's such a great thing for us in the global north as well to learn about, that what we're kind of thinking about of open science doesn't work for everybody. So if we do want to make sure that everybody can benefit from it, we also need to make sure that, we're doing that in a way that is kind of tailored to those local needs as well. So that's already really fascinating. Are there any other kind of thoughts that came out of that as well, with regards to what things that kind of we might think of a given in reproducibility don't work for you, besides the preprint and the pre-registration?
I think this was the main thing, to be honest, or at least this was the one that had the most talk about. And one other thing also open data. African researchers have to work so hard to get their data, and most of the times they're not funded. They're doing it out of their own pocket. So this was also a concern. If I put my data out there, then I could risk, because I want to do so much with my data, even if I have, let's say, I have an embargo period of 6 months or 1 year. This might not be enough because, for example, talking from my experience, while I was doing research in Sudan, for example, getting culture media like RPMI, which is one of the most commonly used culture medias, I had to look for months for it, just to have a little bit. And it was so expensive, but I had to pay for it. So, again, it comes to scooping, and the different facilities that the African researcher have, and the limited resources that they have to do their research. And I always say that, especially talking from my community from Sudan, we've been sanctioned for, I don't know, more than 10 years, but researchers were still able to do some groundbreaking work. So I don't know, I feel like we're heroes, to be honest, because we are working under circumstances that I'm sure if they were in the global north, people wouldn't do it. And also, if we talk about the salaries, for example, the salaries are so little. So you have basically no incentive to be a researcher, but they're all driven by their passion, and their hope that they would help their communities.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring to hear stories of overcoming these challenges in the pursuit of science and the pursuit of knowledge, and sticking with it. That's a really good message to share.
Yeah, I'll learn a lot from that for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit more about the different types of open science. I like to take a pluralist sort of view that there are many ways to do science, probably many ways to do things correctly, and that also means probably many ways to do open science correctly. So I kind of see it more like an attitude, an umbrella, and seems like sticking with it and pushing through the challenges to try and achieve good research, or to sacrifice so much to try and pursue knowledge is a really inspiring part of that idea. I guess another thing I'd like to think about is building bridges between the global north and global south, right? And I think the open science movement generally could be a real way to do that, like a vehicle that allows these bridges to be built. And what I mean by that is like better collaborations and sharing of resources to try and lower a lot of those barriers for example, African researchers who are under-resourced. So, you know, the Society for Improving Psychological Sciences had their annual meeting in Kenya recently, which is, I thought, was a very exciting movement for them to try and bring, get people to Africa and have these conversations there, and also to hopefully build networks and build connections between people. So I was wanting to pick your mind, so that I think the African Reproducibility Network has a good chance of building connections to the other global reproducibility networks and saying, hey, like, help us, or let's work together and try and collaborate. Maybe we can build some bridges. Have you tried some of that or thought about that in any way?
Yeah, actually, we are part of the global AREN community. So we actually a member that collaborates with the international AREN community. And I think we officially joined last year before we even launched. So even at our launch event, the chair for the UK AREN, which was the first that was established, was present to present about the AREN movement. And I think when we were planning our training program too, we had experts from there, trainers, to review our training plan and model to kind of give us that background support. And I think UK AREN also shared their resources for their trainer program. I mean, before we started ours, our model is different, but then they shared their resources to give us an idea of how they did theirs. And I think in the past few months too, we've had a lot of invitations for collaborations to connect, I mean, institutions in Africa and UK, because the UK AREN has a network of institutions that are part of the reproducibility network community. So through us, we're able to connect institutions. We are currently working on one collaboration like that. So it has really helped build that connection. And now the global AREN community has grown to become a very, very big community. There's one in Canada, there's one in Brazil, and aside the UK AREN, there's one in Australia and several across Europe. And I think we meet once every 2 months, virtually, to have these discussions around the community. Even now, the global AREN community is trying to have this structure to ensure that we engage properly, coordinate properly, collaborate properly. So we did our first in-person meeting in Germany this year. I couldn't attend in person, but we could attend virtually too. So you can see that right now there's a lot of collaboration and discussions within the network to see how we can work together and establish those connections between the communities and between the institutions that are coming from this community. So that's a wonderful movement that is going on. And we are hoping that institutions in Africa would really benefit from those connections together.
I would like to add something, is that the Global North has been amazing in our support of AREN, especially in our training program, because we're basically working with almost no budget. We had only funding from ORFG, and it was very limited, very small. So we're volunteering, me and Emmanuel, we're volunteering. And all of the trainers that did the training, they volunteered. They volunteered their time, their effort, and they even had to, some of them had already had the material, but some of them had to create it. And we wouldn't have been able to do anything without them, to be honest. And we're so thankful for their time and their effort and their enthusiasm. And they've even started to form connection with the trainees. Some of the trainees have reached out to them, and they basically also signal to us that they're happy to support the trainees even after the end of the training program. So I think this is very important. This is very important. So we are learning from them, and as per our survey, they are also learning from us, because for most of them, this is a community that they've maybe not exclusively worked before. Maybe they worked with cohorts that had some Africans in them, but now this is a cohort from Africans from all over Africa. So they also, gain new insight on their training. Yeah, so also wanted to mention that because without them, to be honest, the training program wouldn't have been possible.
Wow. That already sounds like there's a lot of very promising bridges. I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. Is there like something in particular that you feel like was kind of like the most hopeful or like the most kind of helpful thing in those connections that you made where you would say, well, this is really what we can expand on?
I think the most beautiful thing about the open science community is that it is a different community and it is a beautiful community, and everyone is looking to help as much as they can. And I think this is what is sort of keeping the movement going. I know most people are working as volunteers. Funding to open science is still a bit limited. It's not just something that we at AREN suffer from, but I know many open science initiatives are basically running on volunteer and on passion. So I think that this is the most important thing, and what I mostly like about this community. And regarding our trainers, I think with most of them, we've already started, and not just the trainer, the other collaborators, we're already starting to think about other projects that we can do, which is very amazing, given that AREN is still a baby. We're still, since we've launched, it's still not even 1 year. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to say, and I'll hand it over to Emmanuel.
Yeah, I think Lamis, you hit the nail on the head. You talked about exactly what I was going to talk about. We realized that in our discussions, even for the collaborators that we were talking about for the training program, our discussions went beyond the training program, as in what can we do outside your involvement in the training program to ensure that we have a sustainable and mutually beneficial partnership. And like Lamis said, there are interesting projects that we are thinking of trying to do. Like when we had a meeting with Flavio at Fort, he was saying, okay, we can work together on the Fort clusters to see how we can also help your content. That's a very interesting something that we could potentially work together on. So, like Lamis said, it's a very, very supportive community. I mean, it's so supportive that it's surprising and amazing, right? That you meet people for the first time and they are just ready to help you. And that really keeps us going. Like Lamis said, that is what keeps us going. So it's been wonderful so far being involved in the open science community. Yeah.
Yeah, what a lovely, hopeful message. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling, I don't know, the love.
Yeah,
that's
I know, I was
feeling like,
thinking that as well.
yeah, it's just like that's it's such a rare thing. I think you've tapped on it. It's like, how often can we talk about global movements where it has this message of I'll help you and of support. And it's really nice to see that borne out in something like AREN.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really amazing, especially, given a lot of doom and gloom kind of mindset at the moment. So it's really great to see that there is still, like a lot of this pushing forward, doing things together and making things better. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, really inspiring, you guys. Very impressed. It's super cool. Yeah, I'm wondering if there are any like other particular things that you would say are really the big next steps for the future that you would like to take.
Yeah, I think currently our focus is on the local network leads that we are trying to bring out through the training program. Next year, they would probably definitely be done with their training and they'll start actual engagement. So now we are trying to focus on how we are going to support them do that. Since it's our first cohort, so we need to have a system in place to support them, something that is more sustainable, not like they are doing one-off things, but in a more sustainable way. I mean, so that is what we are also trying to work on. Although we are still yet to finish the training program, we're also discussing how we're going to support the trainees. And we plan to run the training program at least every 2 years. I mean, that's what we are thinking because of the response we've had from the African research community. After we closed the application for the training, we still had people sending us emails that they wanted to join, but then we had reviewed the applicants and etc. So It's something we want to do, and we want to have as many researchers serving as local network leads or advocacy leads in their communities, because we feel like that is a sustainable way of going about things. If institutions have researchers at the institutions that are already familiar with open science, that means it's easier for them to even implement policies because they have people there that are familiar with it and can help in the implementation. It's a lot difficult when an institution even has a policy and is trying to implement it and there is no support there. It makes it difficult. If you have experts there, they may even help in developing the policy, right? So we think that's a very sustainable way of going about things, and we hope we can get a lot more trainers, involved in that. There are other things that we are working on, but we are yet to flesh them out. So we are sure they will come up later. Yeah.
One other thing that I want to mention is we also started working on trying to develop working groups. And what we're thinking is that they would be working groups for each nationality or country, and also working group for each specialization. And we actually started or launched the working group of the librarians, because we think that they are the most important, gatekeepers in the academic institution. And unfortunately, in Africa, I'm not entirely sure about the global north, but in Africa, the role have been taken for granted for years and years. But we, especially after learning more about open science, we actually fully absorbed and understood their importance. And this is why our very first working group was the librarian working groups. So, and our role as AREN in these working groups is not to steer them in a certain direction, but to support them, to support them and let them see because we're not librarians. We don't know what exactly librarians can do or would do. So we usually, me and Emmanuel are there as supporters, and we sort of encourage them, or maybe, for example, if they need a resource and we could reach out to our collaborators and get them that resource, this is what we do. But this is also something that we're really excited about. And I think in the next years, we will also be focusing more on the working groups. Now our focus is mainly the local network leads training program, but we're also happy that we have about 4 or 5 librarians in the training program. So now we have trained librarians who we know that would very well be capable of leading the group, hopefully in the future. Yeah. And one more thing that I think that we're hoping to do in the coming years, if you look at the map of African countries that are currently involved in Africa, you'll see that there's a gap in Central Africa. So this is something that we want to really think about, how we could reach those communities, because if we get only one researcher from this country, we're sure then this will be the door that opens for us to reach this country. That's why I hope if anyone from this podcast is an African researcher, please join our community. As Emmanuel said, AREN is a community-led initiative, and we really want to hear your voice. And because even though Africa is a continent, and each African country have very unique challenges, and if we don't have someone from this community or from your community, then we will not be able to know the challenges that you guys are facing, and we work together to help alleviate that. Yeah.
We'll definitely drop in more information in the notes for the episode, so you can share information on how people can reach you, how they can sign up, how they can get involved themselves.
Yeah, so perhaps sort of two things to think about. One is how can folks from the global north help support AREN? Is there something that those of us can do to sort of help you out?
Yeah, definitely. So currently what we are trying to do is to ensure that we can bridge those gaps between how things are practiced in the global north and how it's practiced here. So we also launched a community series called the Echoes, where researchers could come in and share how they are contributing to open science or making their research open. We feel like this is a very, very practical way of letting people know that, okay, if I'm a researcher in, let's say, immunology, there is an actual immunology researcher who is actually practicing their research openly. And this is the tools. These are the tools they are using. This is how they structure their workflow. So that is a way that we really want people from the global north to come and share how they're making their research open. Currently, I think that's one way that people from the world could really contribute. And our community is also there. You can join and share resources. If you are from an open science community, you can join our Slack. We're always happy to have people and then share whatever is going on within your community. One thing we are always trying to preach in our community is cross-community interaction. So we are always telling our community members to join other communities and to get to know what other communities are doing, because being part of eLife was what helped us to kind of start AREN. So we know the importance of being a member of several communities. So we've been trying to do that. So our community is there, Slack channel is there. So you can join us and then share resources and anything that you want to do. If you want to organize a webinar, we are also there available. We have slots if you want to do a presentation in our community, that option is also there. So there's a lot that could happen. Yeah. So yeah, we are really looking forward to that.
Amazing. So should anybody who is aspiring to get in and any researcher from the global north who would want to help out, should they just contact and sign up through the same kind of channels as well?
Yeah, I think you can just send us an email to team@africanaren.org or africanrepro@gmail.org, and we are always happy to meet to discuss stuff and then see how we can work together. So yeah, we would be looking forward to those emails coming in. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, let's hope that several of our listeners might go on and follow up with you. That would be really amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully reproducibility as a network can help support AREN by inviting you all to join our network and sharing our resources, hopefully to help help grow the initiative together, because it sounds like
Yeah.
I'd love the togetherness that I think as a theme for this podcast episode. Yeah, so like better together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think on that, William, we actually had a meeting, I think, was it last week, Lamis? Yeah, with Paulina, I think, if I got a Paulina Manduk and Michael Hosey. Yeah, yeah. We had a meeting with them to actually have this discussion. I think Michael sent us an email. Michael is part of our local network lead trainees and he's also part of reproducibility in Uganda. So send us an email about the potential collaboration, and we had that meeting, but it's not official, not out there yet here. So yeah, so we are already trying to, and we told them that we're already in contact with William and Helena about a podcast, and they're like, oh, we'll be excited to listen to the episode. So yeah, we are already looking at how we can work together to promote open science. Yeah.
Love
Very
that.
exciting. That sounds really great. Yeah, I would love to, for example, we have our reading list as well, the literature lists that are available to our listeners on the reproducibility website. So for example, it would be really cool to kind of build on those that are kind of, informing people more about these kinds of cross network approaches, reading up on why, diversity and different perspectives are important to further the movement. So I feel like there's definitely a lot that we can do by working across networks.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out the Framework for Open and Reproducible Research Training who are also similar in this vein, trying to create resources that build these bridges and build these connections.
Are there any kind of last sign-off things that you would like to say to our audience, Emmanuel and Lamis?
Yeah, what I would say to researchers out there is that, yeah, open science seems to be like a new concept to most of them, and it seems broad and can sometimes be overwhelming when you think about it, but you just start small, right? You just start small, start with what works for you, then you kind of grow and integrate more and more. And so, yeah, it looks like a lot of noise is being made globally about open science, and a lot of researchers are like, what is that? I mean, what are they talking about? So just start small with something. I mean, I started small with something, and now I'm involved in AREN. So you can start small with something and eventually you grow and learn more, and then you get to do something wonderful and contribute something wonderful. So that's what I would say. We always say in our community, we are not experts, we are also learning. I think Lamis was saying that we are also learning, right? So it's not anything so scary. I think a lot of researchers feel a bit overwhelmed when they think about the many things that they now have to do to make their research open sometimes. And it's understandable because they have a lot of things going on. So yeah, just start small and eventually you get a hang of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, my message is to the African researchers, because when we started the program, there was this mood or fear that, oh, we're so far behind. How are we going to catch up? But we kept telling our trainees that, no, we're not far behind. The open science movement is still sort of developing. And I think we came in at the right moment, because we need as Africans to shape it in the way that suits us and helps us accomplish what we hope to accomplish. Yeah, so we're not far behind. Everyone is learning, even in the global north. People are still learning, and it's still a developing movement. So I just want to say that you shouldn't feel like, oh, the train has left the station. No, you can still make it to the train and enjoy the journey.
I think this is a great place to perhaps sort of sign off on the episode. So yeah, for our listeners, especially those from Africa who want to be involved, or for those who want to follow what's happening with AREN, where should we go? Where should we look?
Yeah, so we have a website, africanRN.org, and you can also follow us on X at African Repro or LinkedIn, African Reproducibility Network. Yeah, so we'll be happy to have you follow us and then get updates from us. Yeah.
Great. And where can we follow what you're up to? If you'd like to drop your contact details.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is Emmanuel Boakye. And when you see me, I'm sure people will see it because you see the open sign of reproducibility up there. And it's also linked to AREN. So if you go to the AREN page, you see me. I think it's linked to Lamis too. And you can also find me on X at the Scientist GH, at the Scientist GH. The GH is for Ghana, so at the Scientist GH. So yeah, that's my profile on X. Yeah, so I'll be happy to connect.
Nice.
And Lamis?
Yeah, the same. I'm on LinkedIn, and my profile is Lamis Elkheir. And again, I'm linked to our AREN LinkedIn page, and I'm also on Twitter, again, under Lamis Elkheir. It's the same name, so it should be easy. Yeah, and always happy to connect. We're always excited to meet new people, and because there's always an idea coming. There's always something, a spark that gets lit that I'm sure would eventually lead to something amazing in the future. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Love that. Yeah, if our listeners please reach out, keep an eye out for AREN, keep your eyes peeled on what they're doing, because it sounds like they're going to grow into something awesome. Hopefully with more cycles of the training, we can see a nice community established there. And I think maybe send some nice supportive messages to Lamis and Emmanuel for their amazing work. I'm sure they would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a pleasure to have you on. Really, really inspiring. And yeah, it's a very fast-growing baby, AREN. So we'll see how fast it will reach the next stages of the development. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Helena, do you want to drop your details?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So you can follow me on X. I'm at H Gellerson, and you can also follow me on LinkedIn, Helena Gellerson. Yeah, I think those are like the main ones. I'm also on Blue Sky on Mastodon. If anybody's still using those, you can go ahead and follow me there. I'm not very active on those, but yeah, maybe I'll get back on that. We'll see.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. And you can probably find me on Blue Sky. If you search for Will Nyam at bsky.social. Yeah. And if you're interested in joining this movement. Check out reproducibility as well at reproducibility.org. Yeah,
Absolutely. Cool.
that was
Are there
amazing.
any? Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's really, really fantastic. Thanks for our listeners as well. We'll say bye for now, and we hope that you'll tune in next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.